his communication skills on the fundraising side, and he'll take us on a bit of a journey of the success of Sacred Heart Mission and their Dine with Heart campaign. Adrian will be explaining the benefits of good communication strategy to fundraising and the success of your organisation. I'll introduce Adrian. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's actually fabulous to be here, and I am so sorry I couldn't be here yesterday. I was actually in the Torres Strait Islands yesterday, praying that the plane would be on time. It was slightly late, but I made my connection, so I got in late last night. But I was there teaching communication to the Indigenous population who work in government in Torres Strait, and that was. My job's taken me to so many amazing places around the world, but that one was just such a joy because the want and the need to communicate better is right around. So I was very thrilled to be there, and thankfully made it today. But it sounded like a brilliant day, and I was listening to this morning's talk, and I was ready to ask a ton of questions around AI. It's something I'm certainly been working on as well. In the last little while with the centre. But I wanted to start out with a little bit of quote before I introduce the session, because I always go to the ready reference. Where do I get my inspiration from? So I went to the Bible, and I found a lovely little quote about creativity in Exodus 35:35, where it tells us that the Lord has given his people special skills as engravers, designers, embroiderers in blue, purple and scarlet thread on fine linen cloth and weavers. But really when we look at the creatives in the world, it goes beyond those physical skills of creativity. It is, to me, communication professionals, people that work within our industry in PR and media, design, and even technology is what we learned this morning, and how important it is to have those creatives. So today I wanted to share with you a little bit of a creative campaign I was involved with as the chair of Dine with Heart, which is Sacred Heart Mission's fundraising campaign for our dining hall. And I'll let him explain a little bit about the project to start with, or why we were raising funds.
Homelessness is an absence of home. It's an absence of safety and security, privacy. It's also that absence of connection.
Everything starts here in the dining hall at the Sacred Heart Mission. For a lot of people, it's their first point of contact with our service. It's a really important place to begin.
Mission is a not-for-profit organisation that's been in existence for over 35 years now.
We form a community that cares for community issues to make sure that people can make sustainable change in their lives.
Sacred Heart is part of my life. When I first experienced homelessness, I didn't know anywhere that could help me in those days.
I had someone say, "Oh, I've got this place for you," and they brought me to Sacred Heart.
The people here, very good people, very nice people. They help me for everything here.
We open up at 7 o'clock every morning, 365 days a year.
There's no requirement, there's nothing that you have to do other than just turn up. Easy engagement into the support. We will then wrap services around people, community engagement type services, clinical services, housing support.
Most of the residents here always say that the number one quality they feel here is safe.
I think a lot of people who get the opportunity to move in here are going to feel $1 million. This is really special.
I have very good experience with Sacred Heart Mission. They help me to find the permanent house.
All staff are trained to provide a trauma-informed approach, a flexible and individualised response.
We work on 5 different goal areas. The main one is housing, but we also work in health and well-being, social participation, economic participation, and independence.
Building a relationship that's based on trust, respect, And kindness.
Creating connection, creating relationship, and then passing that over to the community.
We like to think ourselves as a family.
The friendships I've made me feel loved.
With that, people will be able to sustain their housing.
I'm in a block of flats that's all women within them. I feel safe, secure, cooking my own meals again.
It's my home.
It's amazing to watch their belief in themselves and their self-esteem just grow.
A big thanks to the people that have donated.
They help me and they help many people.
They give you an opportunity to live life together.
We're asking everyone to be part of the solution, not just for those experiencing homelessness, but the reward that we all get when we connect.
And that's just a nice, so saves me talking at you and explaining Sacred Heart Mission, but the absolute principles of the mission is about the first welcome, and it's the welcome at the table. And this is real Catholic social teachings at work when people come in, and then we wrap the services around them. So the dining hall was critical to that welcome. When I first got involved with the Sacred Heart Mission, it was in the dining hall. I was washing dishes. I loved that. Then I moved to serving meals. I wanted to be the cook there because I'm an inspiring cook at home. So we'll talk a little bit about myself in a moment. But the mission was founded in 82 by the local parish priest, and he said something quite profound, and that was that he wanted to build a place that everyone was welcome at the table. Move forward another 20 years, I get involved with the mission, and the mission was scratching around then to try and find a key message for what it is that they did. And I just happened to be going to the parish, and it started with working in the dining hall. My partner and I were going to the local church, the Sacred Heart Church next door to the mission. And then they asked if I would get involved with the board. So I then stood in and became a board member of Sacred Heart Mission. And they said, "Oh, you have some communication skills." And I went, "Yeah, just a few." And they said, "We're really looking to tell our story because we've got this complexity of message in what it is that we do. And you'll all understand this that work in both parishes and for the different entities in the Catholic world and working with government, that the messaging comes slightly confusing." I was told I really couldn't refer to people as homeless. They had social disadvantage. And all these terms about social inclusion and so on, and we became a dictionary of words that to our clients meant nothing. So when I first joined the board, they said, "We need to tell our story in a very simple way." And all I did was refer back to the original founder of the mission, our local parish priest, that said, "Everyone's welcome at our table." And that's what it became. So we did a whole lot of work on the storytelling side of it. So I then, sorry, I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. So then I became vice chair of the mission. They then asked me if I would take on fundraising. My idea of fundraising was reaching into my pocket and handing over $5 or $10. And I went, sure, why not? But the learning of how much communication is involved in the act of fundraising, and I know Monica will be very proud, we took a very strategic approach to our communication, if anybody attended her session yesterday, and that's what we have to be. We have to be much more strategic in the way that we look at both creativity and the area of fundraising. So I am a communication professional. I've worked in the profession for over 35 years. I was the global chair of the IEBC, the International Association of Business Communicators. One day we'll sit over a drink and I'll tell you how wonderful it is to work with an American organisation out of San Francisco. They're lovely, but the way you tell stories is very, very different. And I was managing a whole bunch of staff there, and I learned employment law very quickly in there. It's arm your lawyers at 5 paces. But it was a great experience to travel the world, look at how communication was happening in different parts of the world and the difference we make as communication professionals. But the other reason I got involved with the Dine with Heart campaign is because I consider myself a bit of a cook. I love it. There's me making my plum pudding, which I do every year. I make about 12 of them. It has about $300 worth of alcohol in it, and probably equally the amount of fruit that goes into it. If anybody's done the plum puddings, and then when you explain to people you're using suet, they'll look at you and go, "You put that in plum puddings?" Don't ask what goes in. So, if we think about the history, so we start, this is a campaign, and I'm going to talk about our 2018 campaign for Dine with Heart, but it was based on the fact that the dining hall took about $240,000 to run every year. A lot of that money for the mission comes from our op shop businesses. Anybody else in the op shop business here? It's good money, can I tell you? We had, in fact, our 10-year strategy with the mission was to build another op shop once a year, because it earned quite substantial money that could go back into funding all the services for our community. But the dining hall alone was $240,000. They based around 2 fundraising campaigns. One was what we call Dine with the Champions. They were all food related for some reason. And then Dine with Heart. Dine with Heart back then was earning $56,000. And the other campaign was roughly the same. So you can see the shortfall that we had in the campaign. But between 2014 and 2017, we extended that campaign, and generally all it was one event on the stage of the Palais Theatre in Melbourne. If anybody's been to the Palais Theatre, lovely theatre, big stage, but the stage will seat about 200 people and that's it. So the only way to increase your funding is to increase the ticket price of the seats when it's one event. But I had a passionate group of chefs from around Melbourne, some of the top restaurants, that got involved with this campaign, and they started saying, well, maybe we could do something at our restaurant. So we got up the idea to say, well, why don't we run a number of events? So we started running mini events during the month of May. And that worked really well for us, because we then got up our campaign raise up to $115,000. So it got a lot more, but still short of what we really needed to get it to. So that's when we decided to take a bit more of a strategic approach to the campaign, and then start looking at, so what can we do to expand this? That's when we got more creative in our thinking, is how do we make this bigger, better, but include a lot more people? So I did a bit of research with my team to find out what is it that we're missing in terms of target. Now, you're probably already sitting there thinking, well, an event on the Palais Theatre stage for 200 people, I can imagine that's an expensive ticket. And at the time, we got it at about $220 a head, which a lot of people was telling us it's still far too cheap. But I'm sitting there going, oh my God, we've got a community here that we're not engaging with. We've got a community of people that want to be involved, and we're actually not allowing them to be involved. We've got all the people like the high net worth donors that are buying tickets for the event, that are handing out prizes and so on. I've got this lovely conversation I had with Paula Fox, because she was a patron of the Dine with Heart campaign. And I remember one dinner, she came to me at the beginning and she said, Adrian, have you got enough prizes for tonight? And I said, well, we could always do with a few more. And she said, well, you can borrow my helicopter if you like. you could take a few people to Phillip Island and go to our motor racing track for the day. Do you think that'd be okay as a prize? I'm like dying inside going, yes, I think so, Paula. I think that would be lovely. So literally on the night, we then raffled off this prize. But it did reinforce, and as much as I love that side, but it did reinforce the fact that how do we extend this and how do we engage a bigger community in the work that we do? So we needed to create a campaign that would build awareness of Dine with Heart, what it was about, and basically set the path for the future. So that's what we worked on. So we came up with the campaign elements around this. that it was going to be an annual fundraising event, but it's going to take the whole of May, so we're going to have lots of events during May. We wanted to increase, obviously, our net income from funding, get a lot more in terms of sponsorship and donorship, but we introduced new campaign elements, which was Dine with Heart at work, at home, and at school. And so this was a concept we came up with to say, we're now covering the other communities that really wanted to get involved. The kids wanted to do something to get involved. Normal families that were not going to come to a dinner at $220 a head or buy a prize of a helicopter. So we needed to engage that group in a much more creative way. So what we did is we looked at what do we need to do in 2018. We weren't going to get to the whole target of that 200,000, but we needed to take a big step towards that target so that we had growth over time. And we did get to it. And that was really about moving a very modest $10,000 extra on new campaign elements, but build awareness so that we set ourselves for the future. So it's taking that strategic view, what do we need to do for a future? So we set some nice objectives around what we need to do in terms of increasing profit. How many meals did that equate to? Because people don't look at it in terms of dollars, they look at it as how many people are going to get fed as a result of the campaign. How many people would get to gala, how much would we raise in our restaurant activities, and therefore, how do we build that awareness and raise extra money with those other campaign elements? So we did have a target for the net worth individuals, they still remained, but we also then targeted our foodie community. We said we really want to get the foodies of Melbourne involved, because anybody here knows Melbourne, it really prides itself on good food and brilliant coffee. Now most of you are going to start arguing for the other states, going, Brisbane has good coffee nowadays, and Sydney, but we still pride ourselves on our coffee culture. And in fact, a lot of the restaurants that we had would just allow people to donate that extra to the coffee in their restaurants, so we had the collections, tins, or the touch points that we would use. But we also wanted to engage those inner city residents in terms of getting involved with the campaign itself and spreading the good news to their friends and families. So our fundraising campaign looked like this, very simple. It was about the gala dinner, it was about a month-long campaign, and also opportunities for people to dine with heart at home, work, or school. So our strategy was very much around use of social media, extending on what we did with that, lots of word of mouth, and a lot of that in-kind sponsorship. So like any campaign, we had lots of opportunities for sponsors to get involved with it. That was mostly around the dinner. But we then started coaching others. My board still hate me for it, but I got every board member to say, you need to go out and find a sponsor. Here's the collateral, we'll write it for you. It's all ready to go. You just need to get the sponsor and bring them on board. And they did. They did a great job with it. Plus the expectation that they had to buy a ticket themselves. Or even a table. So we got them involved in the usual. So the gala dinner then was very much around how much we raised tonight equaled X amount of meals for people who were experiencing homelessness and disadvantage. So then we went on to do some more creatives in the campaign. So we had entertainment at the dinner. The chefs from around Melbourne donated their time and produce to produce all the meals, so the cost was very minimal. We tapped into the market of advertising the various events around, so we had all of the rock posters and the drop leaflets in different parts of Melbourne. So we had this visual that was happening. We even had signs on trams in Melbourne, because they've got lots of advertising inside the trams, so we took up all of that. We got all of that free from Yarra Trams. And then we started to reach out and blast out to the different schools, to the different businesses, and to individuals to start getting involved, and invited them to run their own events. And this is where the magic started to happen, because we started to see people hosting various events and just getting right behind it, because it was their creative idea to come up with the events. It particularly went well at schools. The kids loved it. They would run restaurants and invite their parents in for lunch. So the school would allow the kids to do all the cooking, get everything ready, invite the parents in for lunch. They'd have a sit-down lunch, and then they charged them for it. The kids loved that bit of it, because they know it wasn't going to them, it was going to a good cause. But we then found that to support those events, let's give them the visuals, because this builds the awareness around it. And it's a simple idea, but we did things like create bunting and place cards and invite letters, and gave them all the collateral that they needed. And if you look at some of those other social engagement activities like Red Nose Day and so on, you've often got all of that collateral that you can tap into. So we got creative around some of that stuff. And also for the people that were running events at home. And I'm going to say with great pride, these were some of my pictures from my home event. I did a French-themed meal. I raised $1,000. I only had 6 people for dinner. Well, actually, it was a brunch. And I got very creative around what it is that we did. And it included wine, so it was a good deal. And they were more than happy to come along and do that. And that inspired a couple of my guests to go on and do their own events. So it became more of a social activity. And it was all going back into Dine with Heart, and then we would share that across the social media platforms and what people were doing. We kept building the community, and I think this is one of the key elements to any fundraising campaign, is to build connection. Connection is really understanding why we do things, thanking people for being involved, sharing their successes, and they're more likely to want to get involved next. And so we found from the 2018 campaign, people were all gearing up, ready for the next year and what they wanted to do. We went out to our usual media channels. In fact, we had what were called ambassadors. So a couple of the chefs and myself were ambassadors for the Dine with Heart campaign. So we got interviewed on radio, and we didn't quite make it to the television. We tried, but we certainly got some radio spots, which was fantastic. And it was good to get that media. The big one in this campaign, and if anybody's had to deal with digital posters before, that is expensive advertising. We got all of this for nothing. So we had 5 different locations in Melbourne that they would run the digital campaign. So these were all digital posters that went up. And I tell you what, there's nothing more exciting when you work in this space to be driving down a freeway and suddenly seeing your campaign on a digital billboard. So we were really thrilled about this one. And then they gave us all the stats. So they did all the research and gave us the stats around how much we were getting in terms of market share and so on. And the other one that I thought was a really good idea was tapping into the bloggers, the food critics, the food bloggers, the people that want to talk about food. So we invited them all pre-campaign, so in April, I think it was. We got the chefs to create a sample of their meal and did it very well presented on platters. And we spent most of the time with the bloggers taking pictures to be able to share on Instagram and write their posts and those sorts of things. And we had them along. But I have to tell you, we go back to 2018, it was in that era where they all thought they were bloody celebrities. I didn't come across that. I thought, oh, what a great idea. We're going to have these wonderful people that are going to just help us get this campaign out there, and they were like, well, will I get a free ticket for the dinner? And will you do this for me, and will you do that? I went, can we just make the connection? It's charity, and you're getting your message out there by able to do that. But yeah, they didn't quite look at it that way. But we enjoyed the event. I got a couple of them ending up on the committee, which was great. And then they still asked for freebies. But I just wanted to share with you results, and then we'll get time for some questions, and we'll go into our panel as well. But we had targeted, and this is why I look at this from a strategic point of view. We should always know what we're trying to target, what we're trying to get out of things, and that will drive our communication campaign. So we targeted for 125,000, we got 132, which was fabulous. We increased by 23% instead of 13. It means that we funded 25,800 meals and that's a significant amount of meals for people that experience homelessness. Our gala dinner generally caps, unfortunately, but we still got 88,000. I put that down to the helicopter donation. I said that was mine. I just happened to be there at the time. And the community fundraising event took $21,000, which was fabulous. But the new campaign element I thought was great, because this is kids and people at home doing something. So we targeted 15,000. We thought, well, this will probably be a stretch, but we went over that target and we got 18,288. And then I did some stats around Facebook and things like that, it's great to see those stats, but they're not real figures in communication. It's what's that tangible outcome stuff that you want to get. So as much as you get likes and reposts and all of those sorts of things, we've got to look at the real figures in communication. So being the geek that I am when it comes to comms, I did an ROI calculation, and I'll tell you the reason I did this in a minute. But we increased awareness and the creative elements of the campaign. We engaged new audiences. We got 18,000 additional in new revenue. And we got 132,502 income for the meals program. And the whole thing only cost us $29,000. And if you think about the logistics around this and how much media, digital signage, all of this, anybody that works in that fundraising space going, wow, that was a low budget. Right? And that's not even taking into account the people we got involved from a knowledge point of view. So our ROI was $353,000 in terms of return of investment. The reason I put this in, and I gave this back to the mission in a report, is because I wanted to submit this for a Gold Quill Award for communication with the RUBC, which I did, and it won, which was fantastic. So I was very pleased to be able to share that. If anybody's interested in what happened next from the campaign, because it went on from 2018, the at work, at home, at school really took off in 2019. And then there was something weird happened in 2020 and 2021 that killed the campaign, except for the Dine with Heart at home piece to it. And it's now back into recovery. It started with the Palais Theatre event now, and it's now starting to go into those other campaign elements. But it means that it's set for a future of growth. And that's really, I think, from what we do as communication professionals, is what we've got to focus on. So thank you for letting me share that little story of Dine with Heart. I'm pretty proud of it, and thanks for allowing me to come and share it with you.